If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. micro-tabb.com.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I am Frank Morano. Believe it or not, this week was maybe one of the most significant moments in congressional history. I'm betting, unless you listen to this show regularly, you might not have even known about it because the news media is so caught up in, understandably, covering the transition and covering mayors being indicted and covering wildfires and all sorts of other things. But this week, the Congress of the United States of America held a special House Oversight Committee hearing on UFOs in which non-human, potentially technological intelligences were essentially confirmed in the United States Congress under oath. Sworn testimony was given about non-human intelligences. Watch the hearing. Listen to every word. I have a feeling no matter where you fall on the skepticism scale, you're going to be blown away. These are credible people testifying under oath. The guy that is largely responsible for making this happen is rapidly becoming maybe my favorite congressman in the House of Representatives, and that is Republican Congressman Tim Burchett. He represents Tennessee's 2nd District, where we are very pleased to be heard on WUCT. Congressman, it's great to talk with you again.
Brother, it is completely my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Before we get to the hearing this week, I have to ask your opinion, just because it's being called such an outrage in so many different quarters of life, of President Trump's nomination of Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Both you and he were sort of part of the anti-McCarthy caucus. McCarthy says there's no way that he gets confirmed. What's your take on Matt Gaetz? Is he as evil as everybody says he is?
No, I'm as close to Matt. My wife texted me and said she was sorry because now I've lost my best friend in Congress. And, we've been buddies since I got here. He is incredibly intelligent, and I cannot wait to see him get to the bottom of a lot of this nonsense that goes on over there. And, the guy is completely gifted, but I tweeted earlier today, I said, imagine saying I can't vote for Matt Gaetz, but I gladly voted for Merrick Garland. That's what some of these Republicans are going to have to say. And I don't think they understand the mandate Trump has. They want to slow things down. We need to, it's a control thing. You know what? If they don't want to work for the American people, they need to get out of office. And we need to arrange that as fast as possible the next go round. And we better start paying attention to these votes over these over these positions in the Trump administration, because what you'll see is, the uniparty, what do you want to call it? Everybody wants to call it a swamp. I call it a sewer, because a swamp actually is something pretty cool. It's a little ecosystem, created by God. Water flows in, it filters, it gets into the water table. Animals survive, they feed off each other in an ecosystem. It is a open sewer. It just flows in, no oxygen, no light gets in there. It decomposes on what's called anaerobic, which is the absence of all those things. And that's what Washington, D.C. is. That's why the putrid smell. I mean, it is a sewer up here. And the people that have been running it for so long now realize they screwed up, and Donald Trump's in town, and he's not going to go by any of the traditional norms, and he's going to clean it up.
Tim, why is Matt Gaetz so disliked by so many on the Hill? Is it just because he's independent? You're pretty independent too, but I don't hear people describing you in the kind of terms that they describe Matt Gaetz, at least not publicly.
Well, I don't have the intellect that Matt Gaetz does. He's incredibly gifted. I told a reporter today, it's sort of like most people playing pool. They hit the cue ball into the number 1 or the 2 ball or the 8 ball, and that's all they're thinking about. Matt's thinking about where that ball ends up and where it goes. I was in a secure environment with him down at one of our Air Force bases. We were told about some UFO activity, and some pilots had seen some stuff. And when we got down there, they told us some stuff that's pretty secret and was pretty scary, but they refused to let us talk to the pilots and told us we didn't have the security, we didn't have this. And we're United States Congress, we have the security. It was myself, Representative Luna, and Matt. And Matt got on the phone and they kicked us out. And within 1 hour, they were back down there. They put us in a room, and Luna found it was wired. It was actually bugged, so they could listen to us. And she unplugged it. But Matt had gotten on the phone with the Pentagon, and we were back within an hour. And those pilots were there in their flight suits. They'd just flown in and blew the lid off that whole deal. And do not underestimate Matt Gaetz. That you do that, you will get beat.
No, I mean, I'm not going to take a bet against you and Matt Gaetz on that one. I'll take your word for it. All right, let's talk about the UAP committee hearing, the UAP subcommittee hearing this week.
Yes, sir.
What were your overall impressions of the hearing? My take was that this was potentially much more significant than any of the previous hearings.
Well, we actually, we got down to brass tacks. It wasn't to me, it wasn't a lot of surprises. I know most of the gentlemen that were involved in this thing, and I've been dealing with it for quite some time. We've got a lot of questions were answered, and what came to me, the number one thing is it is imperative that President Trump releases these files. It's not about little green men. It's not about flying saucers. It's about what the heck are we spending tens of millions of dollars on, and they tell us they don't exist, and yet we have sworn testimony. I have pilots, best in the world. A guy told me not long ago, said, Tim, this thing was 14 feet from my canopy. I talked to an admiral, and he says, look, we're seeing these things. The government's telling you they don't exist. They erased our emails containing information about it. We were there, and our pilots had some serious interactions with them. They thought they were going to crash. And then we get back, we have email contact with all the other ships. And then the next day, our emails have been scrubbed.
Wow.
Those are the kind of, we hear that, and that was in the testimony yesterday. I already knew that. I knew that was why that's why that man was there, that admiral was there. But there's just so much out there. And again, what are we spending this money on? I get briefed by some little smart aleck with a man bun, kind of with his little smart aleck attitude, telling me they don't exist. And then we ask him about specific instances. He looks down at his notes and says, we don't have any information on that data. And because of, and that tells you really the part of the root problem. It's so compartmentalized. All these departments that they tell us they don't exist. The CIA, all of our military branches, NASA. But yet they all have divisions that are investigating it. They're spending tens of millions of dollars. They have files they release that are heavily redacted. So if they don't exist, show us what's in those dadgum files. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take President Trump, because in my conversations with him and his people, I'm convinced that he trusts America. He doesn't think he knows, but he's not going to pat us on the head and say, y'all are good, just go in the corner, here's a couple of crumbs.
At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Congressman Tim Burchett. He has been the leader, I would say, in terms of the bipartisan movement on the efforts of UAP or UFO disclosure. Congressman, or I know you always reprimand me for not calling you Tim. Tim, what was the most significant thing that came out of yesterday's hearing if people didn't have an opportunity to watch all 2 hours?
Well, it's what wasn't said. We asked some very tough questions, and because of the secrecy attached to this, and I asked questions and I explained it to the folks so they would know. I specifically asked this question because I knew the answer I would get was, we can't tell you that. We have to, where are the craft? What departments have them? Those kind of questions. And then they would say, I cannot answer that in this setting, which tells you that they exist. Mm-hmm. And that they can't tell us where they're at or where they heard it or whatever, or what document they were read into. So it's a lot of things like that. And what they didn't tell us is what I wanted to hear, because I wanted people, I know the answers to these questions, and I wanted the public to hear those answers, because I want them to see the cover-up is real and that these men have to toe the line. And, or they could face imprisonment or others. And there were people in the crowd. Don't be mistaken. There was people there from NASA. I'm sure there were some spooks there from NSA or Secret Service or CIA or one of the, I'm incredibly tired, or one of these other agencies that would monitor this kind of thing, and to make sure that nothing was said that would, damage their bosses or their overlords or whatever. But could you imagine if you had something that could travel at these speeds that we are just nowhere near capable of doing, 5 times faster than anything we have, or more, actually, and the energy capabilities that could produce, it's beyond belief, really. It's just we could heat our poor people's homes in the winter and cool them in the summer, and we would not need all these worthless wars that we're going into, and the war pimps, as I call them, at the Pentagon would be out of business.
No, I love that.
That's part of it.
I mean, I love that aspect of your message a great deal, and I know it's late, and I know you've had a long week. I won't keep you, but I do have to ask you, Congresswoman Boebert, she was probing several of the witnesses on the existence of underwater alien bases on Earth, and she said pretty overtly that the American people are being kept in the dark.
There are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense involving the manipulation of human genetics with what is described as non-human genetic material, potentially for the enhancement of human capabilities, hybrids. Are any of you familiar with that? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
I am not, ma'am.
I'm not.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I would like to know, with Immaculate Constellation, how does this relate to UAP activities, Mr. Schellenberg, in oceanic environments? Are there any instances where the Navy or other maritime forces have encountered UAPs that could not be explained by known technology or natural phenomena?
Yeah, the Immaculate Constellation covers both terrestrial and oceanic, and there's actually a number of cases described in the report that occur in the ocean.
And do you believe that there is a concerted effort by the Pentagon to keep Congress out of the loop regarding these UAP activities, specifically in our waters?
Yes.
I think it's about 5% of our ocean that's actually been studied in detail by man, and we've studied more of space than we had of our own oceans. And so are there any accounts of UAPs emerging from or submerging into our water which could indicate a base or presence beneath the ocean's surface?
I don't know about a base, but, as I mentioned, I had a different source entirely describe this pretty extraordinary footage that exists of orbs, of an orb coming out of the ocean and being met by another orb.
Some would say that there's multiple hot spots where we see frequent activity. So in your investigations, have you come across any data or visual evidence like sonar readings or underwater footage of these UAPs?
I have not beyond what's in the report.
You've written about UAPs not only in the air but in underwater. Are there any specifics on what you've learned about the UAP activity in our oceans? Particularly, have you spoken with sources who have provided any evidence or eyewitness accounts of these UAPs interacting with our naval forces or being detected by our underwater surveillance systems?
Nothing beyond what's in the report and then the specific case that I mentioned with the orbs.
What was your take on her question about that and what the witnesses said about that?
Well, Lauren's a friend of mine, and we talked about that beforehand, and I agree with her. I have done a little bit of research, and I've been told this by some folks that are in the Navy that there's 5 or 6 hot spots in our oceans, and that we see a lot of these craft. To go, if you want, tell your listeners, go Google. It's Tic Tac video or Tic Tac UFO, and they look like little Tic Tacs, and you can watch these craft heat-sinking cameras pick it up on our aircraft. And I know the pilots who did these things, and they go underwater and they come out at the same speed. And so a lot of these hot spots are in areas where we have deep water. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do these areas of the ocean. So I submit to you, if there is something there, I just can't imagine, I can't fathom something traveling hundreds of light years. Right. Whereas it's every night I tell this story, I always tell this story, but it's true. Every night when I'm back home in East Tennessee, my dogs, they never want to go to the bathroom when we go to bed. They always want to get up in the middle of the night at 4 o'clock in the morning and scratch on the door and want to get out. So I got to go out. But every night I look at those scars and I think, the light from those scars, dadgummit, they left there before the time of Christ. I mean, that is the vastness of God's universe.
Amazing.
So how far could these beings travel? I submit to you that if they're real, and it's something that's here, and they're traveling from here. And the only places that we're not really at are in these deep ocean areas and maybe Antarctica and some areas up there. And generally, that is where the hot spots are. That is where our aircraft have the most encounters. That is where we have undersea encounters. We've got sonar that has picked up these craft underwater that are traveling hundreds of miles an hour. And I think the fastest we've got is something maybe they'll do like 40 miles an hour. I'm not sure what that translates into knots. I'm showing my ignorance there, but these things travel hundreds of miles an hour. They on sonar, and they're traveling under the water. And so we've had these, and there was testimony that described that. Well, they alluded to that. If you go back and watch it, there really just wasn't enough time to. And that's part of the problem, too. They're never going to make Tim Burchett chairman of one of these committees because I don't put up with any nonsense. To be a chairman of a committee, you got to either do two things. You got to kiss a lot of butt, for lack of a better term.
Or raise some money.
Raise a ton of money. And I don't have the millionaire or billionaire class. All my contributions are $50, $100 type working people, and I'm grateful for it. They've carried me through this last election. And politically, we're more or less threatened. We're told, you get out too far line, they're going to pop you on this UFO thing. In this last election, I received my largest vote count in the history of me being in Congress.
Wow. Congratulations. I can't say that I'm surprised.
Well, no, it's because I got great people. They're just wonderful. I represent a great community in a great area of the country. But people are tired of this stuff. Over half, if you do read the polls, over half the country believes there's something else out there. That's a pretty darn good number for me. And so people are questioning. They're frustrated with our government. They came from all over the world yesterday to be at this committee.
Yeah.
People were there. They got there at 4 a.m. to get in line.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
If you're just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Tim Burchett, the lead congressman on the UAP issue. And if you look at the members of Congress and the members of the Senate that are involved in this, it seems like this is the only bipartisan thing in Washington these days, or one of the few at the very least. Before I let you go, Tim, I want to ask you on behalf of the skeptics, the Pentagon has publicly stated there's no evidence of alien technology, yet you and other officials continue pushing for greater transparency. To what extent do you think skepticism from institutions like the Pentagon is holding back the progress of disclosure? And do you believe that the reluctance on their part is based on national security concerns, or is it based on something else?
Well, I'm going to be blunt to you that the Pentagon is lying. When you have sworn testimony that says nothing on this earth, none of our enemy or domestic, has anything capable of the speeds that these craft were traveling at, human body would be turned into a ketchup package, basically. I mean, it would just liquefy at those speeds and the G's that they're doing. So, you know, they have one guy telling you that what these things are doing, and then they tell you that they're not from this earth, and then they tell you they don't exist. So, again, it's compartmentalized. And why are they doing this? Because that's what runs Washington. Arrogance, greed, things like that, and power. Arrogance, greed, and power are the three big ones. And that's what runs our Pentagon. That's what runs these departments. That's why they're freaking out over Trump, because he's not just going to cut the head off. He's going to go for the base. And that's where they're gonna be hurting, and they'll have to start looking for another job.
As Michael Gold mentioned, there's what he referred to a pernicious stigma around UAP research. How can Congress support a legitimate scientific inquiry into UAPs without fueling unnecessary fear or unsubstantiated conspiracy theories among the public?
I just don't think we're ever going to get to it. I think we're running so many different directions until we've got a president. The problem was prior to this, Trump didn't know about it. He wasn't read into it. he's made some indications publicly. I'm not going to talk about our conversations privately because that'd be inappropriate, but publicly of Area 51, Roswell, and what went on there. And so I think he's got some good people around him that I know that are UFO believers. And if they get sworn into those offices, Katie, bar the door, brother. We're coming at them full blast, and it's not going to be, this garbage out of the Senate about, we're going to set this. Schumer had this thing, and he basically acknowledged that they're UFOs, but then he wanted to set up this screening process that was similar to the Kennedy stuff. So they're admitting they got them, but they won't let us see them. So here we are 60 years after Kennedy, and we don't know any more we did to the day that guy on the grassy knoll shot at him, plus Oswald, their scapegoat, was over there. So now Trump's talking about doing that. He is going to upset this entire apple cart. And, man, God bless him. If he can stay alive long enough, he's going to turn this town upside down. He's going to put America back on track. And this will be one of those issues that he will. The critics are going to be on him. He doesn't care. If you tell Donald Trump he can't see something, you better just get the heck out of the way because he's going to bust somebody's ass. And I'm very happy for that.
It sounds like you're pretty optimistic about where we're headed in a Trump presidency. Not, putting aside everything else on the UAP issue, it sounds like you're pretty optimistic.
Yes, sir. I am. But it's going to be tough. We got to support him. And I would encourage people to put pressure on their Congress people and senators. I would say, drop them an email, say we want total transparency on the UFO UAP issue. You don't have to get smart or say anything stupid to them. Don't get threatening, but dadgummit, let them know that's an issue. I go places now, and in an area where a bunch of, we're in the South, but a bunch of Yankees moved down there, and dadgummit, they're more conservative than I am in East Tennessee.
Well, that's why all my fellow New Yorkers are moving down there to get away from the cost of living and some of the policies that they're trying to escape up here. So I can't say that I'm surprised.
And they're good folks. They just talk funny. So, but I went to this event, and they actually charged people admission for their club. It was a homeowner association, and it was specifically about UFOs. And there were 90 people. That was the limit and they sold it out, and they had me talking about it, and that's all they wanted to talk about. And I talked to them about the issue, about where we're headed. And these are military officers, a lot of them retired. They believed it. Some of them had seen things. Some of them, after it was over, it came up and confided in me and stuff they were involved with. So it's out there. And the American public deserves to know the answers. And it's not government's job to decide what I can and cannot handle.
Right, exactly. On every issue, including this one.
Every issue.
Congressman Tim Burchett, it's always a treat to talk with you. Whenever I hear you speak in other interviews or see clips on social media or on television or other radio stations, I always get a little bit of a buzz that I'm glad there's someone like you out there in public life. So keep at it. You're making us proud.
Well, thank you, brother. And I just want everybody to know I am not suicidal. So if I turn up with 14 bullet holes in the back of my head, I did not shoot myself.
Save that audio clip, fellas, because if on the eve of disclosure, if the congressman goes missing, we're going to play that one back. Congressman Tim Burchett, a Republican representing Tennessee's 2nd District. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Keep putting the truth out there. That's why they're firing at us. We're over the target.
We're trying. If you want to comment on any portion of my conversation with Congressman Tim Burchett, you can give me a call, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.